Okay. Good morning, everyone. How are you doing today? Good morning, online. Good morning. Okay. So everyone are doing good. Uh, did you completed your practicals? Completed? How about you online? Did you guys completed the practicals? Super. Very good. Okay. So in our last class, what we did, so we have learned so many commands, right? And in the last minutes of last session, what we did, we took a base image called Ubuntu, and from that base image, we created a container, and then we logged into the container and installed a lot of tools, and from there we created an image. So what's the command to create an image? Docker to create an image, not to pull the image. I'm asking how to create an image from the container. Mhm. Docker commit. What is that? Docker commit. Load command is just to load the image from the tar file, from the .tar file. So yesterday, in our last class, what we did, we created a container, we installed the apps, applications, tools. From there, what we did, we created image or not by saying Docker commit and then container name and then image name. Hmm? So, but as that was not a good process to create an image. But still, I showed you how to create an image using Docker commit. But here, how do we create the image in the real time is through Docker file. What is through Docker file? Say that using what? Docker file. So using Docker file, what do? We create a image. And if you have a Docker file, what do we do in order to create an image? What is the command to do to create an image? Docker build. What's that? Docker commit, leave it completely. So from today, what we learn? Docker file we learn. So if you want to create a image from the Docker file, what's the command that you use? Docker build. Say that, Docker build. So Okay, online, can you hear me now? Okay, sorry, there was some network issue. Yeah. Okay, so we were talking about the Docker file, right? So in our last class, what we did, so we created the image through a container. Yes or no? So we created first we took a base image. From that base image, we created a container. Inside that container, we have installed all the applications or tools. And from that container, again, we created an image using a command called Docker commit. Using a command called Docker commit. But this is not the ideal way of creating the image. So we should use what? Docker file in order to create an image. So how do you create an image? Using what? Docker file. So using Docker file, we'll create an image, and this Docker file is used to automate image creation. What is Docker file, Anna? Docker file is used to automate what? Image creation. In the Docker file, we have something called components. Say that. Say that again. In Docker file, what we have? We have components. Yeah. So here, see, we have something called what? Components. Inside the Docker file, we have the components. Components will be always in capital letters. Remember, components will be always in capital letter in the Docker file. So Docker file name should be Docker file only, and D should be capital letter. D should be capital letter. Docker file name should be always Docker file. So if you want to create an image, you need to create a Docker file. So VI Docker file name should be only Docker file, and D should be what? Capital letter. It's mandatory. Okay. So using this Docker file, in our previous class, we created an image with the help of container. Yes or no? We have a container, and from that container, we created image using a command called Docker commit. But here, we can create the image without the help of container, because we write everything in the Docker file. We write everything in where? Docker file. We don't need any container in order to create an image. We use a Docker file in order to create an image. So once you have a Docker file, if you want to create an image, what's the command that you use? Docker. Forget commit. You have a Docker file. From the Docker file, if you want to create an image, what's the command that you use? Docker build. Which one? Docker build. So remember, whenever you have a Docker file, so what's the command that you always use? Docker build. Using this Docker build, using the Docker file, will create a image. So that Docker file contains something called components. What we call components. So here a component called from. Say that. From, as I told you, capital. So components will be always capital letter. So from meaning, if you want to create an image, first of all, you need to have a base image or not? You need to have a base image. From meaning always represent a base image. What image? Yesterday we use Amazon Linux, Ubuntu, right? And then any other base images will be there. First you take the base image. Whenever you do Docker build command, what will happen is Docker build command will go and see the Docker file, and then first it will take the image, and whatever the commands that you have written in the Docker file, into that image it will set up everything, and the image will be ready. Right? So what is here? From meaning it is used to get a what? Here? Base image. Very important command. Say that. Run. What's the component here? Run. So if you want to run any Linux commands, what is the command that you use here? Run. Say that. Run. So not required. Sequence is not mandatory. So from should be always on the top. So run, it used to run the Linux commands. See here, during image creation. Very important. What is that? During image creation. Once we write a Docker file, what we do? We do the Docker build, right? Once you do the Docker build, whatever that you have written in the Docker file using run commands, all those commands will be executed. in the process of creating a build. In the process of creating a build. Now, once the image is ready, from that image, what you create again? Container, right? Okay. So I'm telling you, run commands will be run during the image creation itself. From that image, if you create a container, at that time, if you use CMD, say that CMD, whatever the commands that you are using CMD component, that will run at the time of creating the container. At the time of creating the image, run command. At the time of creating the container, then it will use CMD. If you want to execute, let's say for example, in the image, you install Apache. In the Docker file, you write a code to install Apache. So at that, once you do Docker build, Apache will be installed, image will be ready with the Apache, and then that is an image. While in the image, the service will be running. Service will not be in the running state. So from that image, if you create a container, then in the Docker file, if you use CMD command, start Apache, for example. And then when you create a container, what will happen? Apache will start or not? This is the best example I can give. So if you want to install, then use run command. If you want to start the services, or if you want to start anything, then use CMD command. Because can we use image or can we use container? Container. We'll be using what? Container. Image is just an image where it contains everything. But when you create a container from that image to start some services, then we use CMD command. Understood? Online. So entry point, as the name says, so whenever you go to the container, so this entry point, any directory will be set. So it is high priority than CMD. So it is, if you use entry point, it is a high priority of the CMD, but we'll use in the coming days. What is the next component here? Copy. You know very well. If you want to copy a file from local file to the container, then we use what? Copy. Let's say, for example, we have a lot of code in my EC2 instance, and I want to copy that code to my container or to create an image. So while creating an image, we need to have application inside the image or not. So that meaning I need to copy all the data into that image or not. So what's the command? What is the component that we use? Copy. Can we do like this? In the Docker file, we download our repository from the Git where we have the code, and I use copy command here, copy component, and copy that into image, and my application will be ready or not. We'll do a lot of things here. Next is add. What is that? So if you want to copy internet files to a container, if you want to download, if you want to Apache files you need to download from internet, then use what command here? Add. Next here what? Work directory. Work directory meaning by default, if you want to go to a particular directory, then we use what here? Work directory. Then what we have here? Label. Say that. Label meaning you can add the label for the images like author, who created the image, etc., etc. Environment variables, we have learned a lot of times. And then what is that here? Arguments. What is that? Environments will be created inside the container, and then arguments outside the container. We'll see. And very important component here is what? Expose. If you have your application running on particular port number, that needs to be exported outside or not. So we need to use something called expose to give the port number outside. So these are the few components that we will be using it. So say with me, what are the components here? Read it. From, run, CMD, entry point, copy, add, working directory, label, env, arguments, expose. So if I ask you a question here, what is the Docker file component to get the base image? From. What is the Docker file component to run the Linux commands in the image creation process? What is the component to execute Linux command after container creation? CMD. What is the command to copy my local files to the container? Copy. What is the command to use my internet files to the container? Add. You understand? So like this will be. So these are all the components that we'll be using. So what we do, let's go and then start our first Docker file. Okay now? Ready? So what is the name of the Docker file? Docker file itself. So first of all, what we need to do? M install docker -y. Okay. Now I want an image which it contains Ubuntu, Ubuntu base image, update all the packages, install Git, Maven, Tree, Apache, and create one file. This is my requirement. Let's do that. So systemctl start docker. Okay, let's go and create a Docker file. You can create, so I'm in the root. If you want, you can create a directory and create it, no problem. Otherwise, go ahead. D should be capital letter and no space. It should be Docker file. Enter. Okay. Now, what is the first component I need to write here? From which I'm using what? Ubuntu. Now I want to update. So what's the command I need to, what is the component I need to use? Run. What is that? Run. And then use the Linux command. Apt update -y. Now install Git Maven. What is the component I need to use? Hey, CMD is used only while creating the container if you want to run it. But here I want to install everything in the image creation process. So you need to use what here? Run only. Okay. So run, install apt, install Git, Maven, Tree, Apache, whichever you want. -y. So now tell me a line how to create a file. Run, touch, file one. Yes. You understand the Docker file? So from Ubuntu, base image should be there, and then use the run commands. Mostly we use what commands? Run commands. Run commands and then copy commands to copy the code to the containers. Tell me. So from base image is Ubuntu. Next, run, update the packages. Apt update -y. Next, run, apt, install, Git, Maven, Tree, Apache 2. Next, create a file. Run, touch, file one. You got it? Okay. Save it. Everyone understood? This is the first Docker file. We'll write so many Docker files. Okay. So now we need to run this Docker file. What is the command that we use? Docker build. Say that, Docker. So you have a Docker file, and if you want to create an image from this Docker file, and now tell me if I, okay, now, so Docker, say that, Docker build -t. You need to tag that image. -t, I'm creating an image called Riaz, and that I'm tagging as which version? Version 1. And need to mention the Docker file here. Where is your Docker file? Current directory. Current directory meaning here in Linux, dot. So you need to put dot. Tell me the command again. Docker build -t for tag. You're creating an image called Riaz version 1 space dot. So what will happen now? It will check for Docker file. Whatever there is in the Docker file, it will install everything and it will create an image called, what's the image name here? Riaz version 1. Okay, very, very important. See here, enter. See. So guys, these are all called image layers. And do you see what is the run command we have given, right? So run command is running it here. Apt update -y, it is happening. And then see, apt install git maven tree Apache is happening. How many tasks are there? How many lines are there? 4 lines, right? That's why it is saying here 3/4. 4 meaning from Ubuntu is there, run apt update is there, run apt install is there, and last one run touch is there. 4 are there. That's why it is going with the third task. It is installing all the things. And next 4x4. And these are called image layers. Say that. Say that again. See here, image layers. All these are all one by one. What we have it is here, image layers. That meaning instead of creating the entire image in one shot, right? Instead of creating entire image in the one shot, so everything will be using line by line, layer by layer. In first layer, it will install. In the second layer, it will apt update it do. Second layer, apt install. Whatever the commands that we, everything will go with the layer by layer. That's why we call it as image layer. Now see here. Now the image got created or not? What's the command to see the image? Docker images. Do you see? Ria's image is there and the tag is which version? Version 1. This image ID just now created and it's almost 500 MB. You understand how to create an image automatically? Online, you got it? Okay, from this image, can you create a container? Tell me the command. Docker run hyphen it hyphen name. I call it as container 1, cont 1, and then image. Ria. If you put Riaz, will it work? It will not work because we have a tag there. If it so colon, which one? Version 1. Okay, now. So and then create it. So I'm inside the container. Yes or no? If I'm inside the container, if I do git hyphen v, git is there already. Did I install in the container? No. So because it is there already in the image. It's already in the image. Because in the image, so using Docker file, whatever that we need, everything we wrote in the Docker file, that is there in the image. From that image, you create a container. Whatever is there in the Docker file, then container, it is there. This is how you create an image. Understood? So here control PQ. Okay. So now I have Docker PS hyphen. Yeah. Container is also there. So now let's go to another example. And what I want you to write here is we use run component. Let's use CMD component also this time. I want you to use the base image Ubuntu. I want you to update it. I want you to install Maven tree Apache and everything. Create a file and then install Python and then install MySQL server should be installed at the time of container creation. And rest all will be installed at the time of build creation. Should we write a Docker file for it? You got it? At the time of container creation process, I want you to install MySQL server. Rest all in the image. Ready? Let's do. So, but I need to write a Docker file, one more Docker file, right? So what I do, should I rename it? What's the command to rename? I want to just rename the file. Move Docker decapital Docker file 2. I call it as Docker file 1. Now I'll create a Docker file. Vi, which one? Docker file. Okay, tell me the commands now. From capital letter. From Ubuntu. Next. Run apt update minus y. Next. Run apt install git maven 3 Apache 2 minus y. Next step. Run, create a file. Touch file 1. Next step. Here, install Python. Run apt install python 3-y. Now, I want MySQL server to be installed at the time of container creation process. So which component I need to use here? CMD. CMD what? Apt install which one? MySQL server. So what are the components that we're using here? From run CMD. You understand when to use run, when to use CMD? Run will be executed at the image creation process, whereas CMD will be executed at the container creation. Let's go. Okay, tell me the command how to build it. Docker. Are you following or not? Then tell no command. Today is Monday. You should be energetic, not like tell me. Okay, Docker. Build online. Put it in the chat. What's the command? Docker build hyphen t. Riya's version 2. Okay, na. So now what will happen? Image will be built. Everything will be installed except. Yeah. Let's go. So run apt install python 3. So what it says? It created or not? What's the command to see the image? Docker image. And you see version 2 got created. From this, create a container. Tell me the command to create a container. Docker run hyphen it hyphen name container 2 version 2. If I hit enter, what will happen? Generally, it will go inside it and then they'll stay inside the container, right? But this will install MySQL. Do you see? You understand the difference between run and CMD? So CMD meaning it will be executed at the container creation process. So if you want to start the service, mostly we'll use CMD for starting the services. And in that image, you don't want to create a MySQL because image will be heavier, right? So whoever wants MySQL server, so in the Docker file, I wrote it, but I put it as CMD. Whenever container is created, then automatically CMD commands will run. See, now it's done or not? It's done. Docker ps-a. So I have here, it is in exit status, that's fine. So container created or not? Answer. Online, is this clear? Offline clear, everyone? Nice. So now let's go with another example. And this time let's go with a component called copy and add. Which component? Copy for what purpose? Copying local files to container. And then add copying internet files to the container. So should we go and write it? So to write it, what I need to do? I need to move the Docker file or not? Okay, move which one? Docker file to Docker file 2. And then let's go and write Docker file. So now tell me the command from Ubuntu. And then, okay, before only one in that directory, we ask. Okay, before I write, you need to copy the local files to container. That meaning we need to have a local file or not. So simply what I do, I'll create one index.html. Assume that, yeah, we have a local file. What we have here? We have a local file. This is very important because in the local, we will be having all the code. So we need to move our local code to container. So for that reason, copy is very important command. So let's go Docker file, Ubuntu. So what's the component that we use here? Copy what? Index.html to where? For example, in the container, in which directory? Temp. But can you move it to /var HTTP, var www HTML also? Your wish. Okay, next. Here is add. What is that? If you use add, so you internet files. So if you internet files, you can download it and use this command. I assume that we have been downloading Apache, right? Using that using that DLCDN DLCDN Apache. Let's Tomcat 10. This bin directory ZZ. So copy this. So I want this. So what do you do? Just paste the link. So I have the internet file, and then this should be copied to which directory? Into the /temp directory. Into which directory here? Temp. Apache will be copied into which directory? Temp directory. My local, see, I'm copying the local file to the temp directory, and also I'm copying internet files to the temp directory. Okay. You understand this? Let's save it. Let's build it now. What's the command? Docker build -t Riaz version 3 space dot. Done. So if I use now Docker images, so I have here version 3. I have version 3. Okay, create a container from this. Docker run -it -name and then container 3. Which one? Version. I'm inside it. Go to CD. Which directory? Do we have the files there? These are all required in order to write a big Docker files. But all the Docker files will use this kind of commands. You understand add and copy concept, copy and add concept? Online? Online. Is it clear? Nice. Okay. Now let's go to another component called work directory and label. Which one? Work directory and label. We can use the same Docker file if required. So I'll use the same thing. So what we need to move the Docker file or not? Move which one? Docker file to Docker file. So let's create a, yeah. Okay. So I'm using same copy add. Your wish, we can write whichever the components here. But here, let's go to work directory. What's that? Let's go to work directory. Just a second. Okay. So my requirement here is, see here, my requirement here is I'm copying my index.html and then Apache into which directory? Temp. And in previous example, what I did, I created a container out of it and I manually went into cd/temp. Instead of that, when I create a container, automatically I should go into which directory? CD directory. So which component I need to use here? Work directory. Which directory? /temp. And then you can use something called here what? Label. Author is who you can. Label is just like a tag. Understood? There is no technical in label. It's just a tag. Guys, you understand this? Now, let's go and create. Okay, build it. Command. Docker build hyphen T Riaz. Which one? Version 4. Dot. So why it is giving 10 slash out of 10? Because we are using the same image and we are creating a versions on top of it. So here this Docker is very intelligent. If you do Docker images, you see we are using the same image. We are using what here? Same image but different tags. Different tags. So whatever that you have executed before, it will not execute. Already executed the components, it will not execute again. So on top of it, whichever the new components are there, it is executing. That's why image creation is super fast here. Okay. So now create a container out of this. Docker run hyphen it hyphen name container for Riaz. Which version? Of course you can do that, Pranjal. See here, in which directory I'm in now? Temp. So this is through work directory component. What is that? If I do ls, I have my online. You got it now? So now what I did, I created a label for it, right? Which one? I created a label for which container? Container 4. So how do you check? So which is what is a Docker command to get to know about the entire thing about the Docker? Docker stat to know only CPU information, CPU memory. I want to know the entire information. Inspect. Which one is that? Docker inspect. Which container? Container 4. Pipe grep. Do you see? Author is. So who created this container? Myself. So if you want to put the author name, so use which component here? Label component. Which component? Label component. You getting it? Online. Clear now? You getting it? Clear? Okay. So now let's go to environment. What is that? env. Which one is that? Environment. So for that, what we do? We'll move the Docker file. Okay. Move Docker file to Docker file 4. vi Docker file. Okay. Let's go. From which one? Ubuntu. Guys, you can write all the document, but here I'm just showing you component by component so that you are, for every component, I'm giving an example. So here we have a component called env. Say that. Env meaning what here? Environment variables. What is that? Environment variables. Environment variables, you know very well. What is a variable? Which holds a value. What's a variable? Which holds a value. So here I'm writing course is, for example, which one is that? DevOps. And write one more. Who is the trainer? Myself. Yes or no? So what it'll do? It will just create a, what it will just create a environment variables inside the image. Let's run. Tell me how to create a, how to build it. Docker build hyphen T Riaz version 5 and then dot. Done. So create a container. Docker run hyphen it hyphen name container 5 and which version? I'm inside the container. So how to print a variable? Before we do use what? Echo dollar. What is the environment variables we created? So if I use echo quotes, then what should I get printed? DevOps. Understood? If I use here trainer, did I create this environment variable inside the container manually? No, I pass these variables using Docker file. So here I'm just passing small variables, but in real time, can we pass username, password, credentials, or any kind of things in environment variables we can create and then pass it over through Docker file or not? Clear? Online, is this clear? Is this clear till here? Any questions? Nice, super. Okay, so you understand. I'll teach about the expose soon, but rest of all components are clear for you. When to use what? It's clear. Guys, I'm telling you in Docker file is very important because this is how we create the images in real time. Okay, now all the basics are done on the Docker file. Let's go to the actual real example now. So what I need is, let's go and then I have a repository in the GitHub website. Let's get them downloaded here in our local machine. And then I have locally all the code. And then I want you to create a Docker file where you need to install Apache and then copy my local website to which directory? var www.html, because it is Apache. And then I want you to restart the Apache service and my application should be exposed on the port number 80 and the service should start. This is my requirement. Actual real requirement. I'll explain again. I have a repository in the GitHub. First of all, in order to deploy the application, we need to have application or not. Where is my application? In the GitHub. Where is my application? In the GitHub. So I want my application to be here on my local machine. What should I do first? Git clone. Very good. What should I use? Git clone. For that, what I need to install first here? Command m install -y git. Okay. Okay. So git is installed. So git is installed. So what I need to do now? Git. Are you working here? Am I tracking any files here? Then why you want git in it? Not required. We are just downloading the files. For that reason, what we use here? Git clone. Clear? Next time, no confusion. So if you want to work in the working directory here, so then you use git init and then checks the git status, git, everything we do. But what are we doing here? We are just getting the code. We are not working. We need the code here. So what you need is git clone and then get it over here. We do ls. So what is the directory that got created here? Because my git, my repository name is website. So let's go inside the website. Let's go inside the website. So here, okay. So here, do you see, I have this code. What are this? I have a lot of code. So this is my index.html font images. I assume this is an application. Don't worry about the application all the time. It can be HTML application. It can be Node.js. It can be React.js. It can be any type of application. What you need? Code. What you need here? Code. So we have the code ready. And so now I need to create a Docker file where that Docker file, so you need to create an image out of it where you should have Apache installed. All this code should be copied into var www HTML. Should we write a Docker file for that? Tell me what's the command. vi docker file. From which one? You can take Ubuntu. You can take Amazon Linux. You can take whichever you want. Depend upon the commands that you write. Okay, run Ubuntu. Always update is important. So what's the command? Run apt. Very good. Okay, next. Install Apache. Run apt install Apache 2 minus y. Very good. Next, we copy. But here, I use something called apt install Apache 2 utils also. What is that here? Any kind of utilities that Apache need also will get downloaded. Next, copy. What is that here? Next, copy. Copy what? What is the next directory name? Okay, website / to which directory you are going to copy? /var / www / html. There is some issue here, right? Huh? No. We don't have any subdirectories. Are we inside the exactly, Kiran? Are we inside the website directory or outside the website directory? Inside. Inside meaning if you want to copy, how does it will identify the directory name here? So you can put either dot. Whatever that you have, you can put. Otherwise, this Docker file you should be outside website. You understand? So I'll keep the Docker file outside website. Let's write it and then we'll move it. Okay. Next. So we copied. Okay, next Nana. So we need to run the service or not? So here run service. Which one? Apache 2. We'll restart the service. What we do here? Restart. And your application should expose on which port number? 80. Which port number? 80. Now, so we have a cmd command. What command? Cmd. So whenever container got created, automatically Apache will run on the foreground. But not background, it is what? Foreground. Foreground meaning, so it will make the container alive all the time. So here cmd. So we have our Apache is there under /usr /sbin /apache ctl. Okay. So don't worry, this command will be available anywhere. So here I'll write here foreground. Please go through this Docker file once. This is how actually we write in real time. -d meaning foreground. So last command here is cmd command. So your Apache binaries are installed in USR, SBIN, Apache CTL will be there. And this Apache CTL, this service will be running in the foreground when the container got created. CMD meaning when we did use while running the container. While running the container, all these things will be installed in the image section only. And while running the container, just it will run the Apache service in the foreground. The container process stays alive. So if you are not using it foreground, the container will automatically stop. So that's why we need to run all the commands in the foreground so the container will be alive all the time. Guys, is this clear? Understood? No? Clear? So now what we do? I have the Docker file here, but I should not have the Docker file. I need to go over. Okay. I need to go back. Oh, we have so many Docker files here. So move, which one? Docker file to Docker file 5. So now I need the Docker file here, right? So move, which one? Website slash, which one? Docker file to where? Local. So if I here, now I have the Docker file here. Huh? So now cat Docker file, we have that our Docker file. Okay, now let's create a build. Docker build -t, call it as first project. Which one? Version 1 and space dot. It will be on server level only, Shahrukh. You understand how to build it? Now if I build it, what will happen? Tell me. If I run this command, what will happen? Image will be created. What does the image contain? Tell correctly what this Docker file will do now. Image will be created. What does the image contain? Application, right? So you should tell like this. We have the code locally onto the machine, and then this Docker file will help to copy the local code into the image where we have the Apache installed. In that Apache meaning what www.html will be there, no? All our local code will be copied over there and application will be hosted automatically. So let's build it, see what happens. Apache is installing. Got enough? Got it? So now what we do? We need to create a container out of this. So we have our application running. We have application installed in the image. Now we need to create a container. This is how we create a container. Very important. See here. Tell me. Docker run -it. I go with what now? D for the dashboard. -- name. Call it as new web container 1. And then here we need to expose the port or not? We need to expose the port. You need to use what? -p. What's the port number here? 80. So we have something called host port and then container port. Say that. Host port and then container port. So host port is 80 and then container port is also 80. And then what's our image name? Just first, really? First project colon, which one? Version 1. No need. Why? That is for exec, no? Bin bash is for exec. See the command. Remember, this first one is host port. Say that. Host port. And this one is what? Container port. So that meaning, see, as I told you yesterday, this is the EC2 instance. And inside the EC2 instance, what we have here? Container. So inside the container, we have the application running. Inside the container, we have the application. So application running on which port number? 80. And the same port number, we need to expose it outside or not? Can we expose this container directly outside? No. For that reason, here we have this is EC2 instance. EC2 instance is nothing but the host machine. What machine? So on host also, we are exposing on port. So that's why we call it as port 80 here, :80. So this is the host port and this is always the container port. Say that. What is this here? Host port and this is what? Container port. I have a doubt. Docker images. What is the image? First project only. Yeah? Okay. Okay. Tell me the command again. How to create a container. Docker run -itd -name. Call it as new whatever web container 1, and then -p 80 colon 80, and then first project colon version 1. Container got created now. Container got created. So if you do docker ps hyphen a, so we have the container here. Let me docker ps hyphen a. So do you see this one here? We have the container running. What's the container? So which is the image it is using? First project, and then the command. Do you see this command? We have given USR has been Apache CTL or not. That meaning this will be executed, and then we have exposes the container using port 80. So port 80 to 80 here. And what's the container name here? Guys, understood? So if I take the IP address here and put it into the browser, what should I get now? Website or not? Let's do. There we go. So guys, till now we have deployed application on the EC2 instance, but now we have deployed the application inside the container. To show you this, I have given you these much basics. You got it? You got it? So previously we have the EC2 instance. Inside the EC2 instance, what we did? We installed Apache, and then we have deployed the application. But now, same EC2 instance, but what we have installed? Docker. What we have installed? Docker. And we created a container. First, what we created? We created Docker file. So from Docker file, we build it, and from that we created a container. And the container, inside the container, what we have? Application. See, did I create a container manually and then created a container manually install the application? No. So what I did, I wrote everything inside the Docker file, and then I build it, and from there I created a container where we have the application readily available, and then the container application is running on which port number? 80, and you expose that port to the host port as 80, and outside you put IP address colon 80, and you have your application working. You understand the difference in EC2 how we did and in Docker how we did it? Clear? Online cities is clear now until here? That's okay. You are. You want here? So here from your big guys now. What we do it? What's the command? Docker build -t, and then what we put here? -b. Image name colon tag name space dot. Docker build. And you know how to create. Tell me the container creation. Docker run hyphen itd hyphen name. So, and then container name hyphen p colon 80 and then image name colon tag name. This is the container, no? This is the image name. Right here 80 meaning host port colon container port. Very nice. Okay na? Clear? कहाँ है भैया डिस्क्रिप्शन? Either it's clearly shows, no? Here I don't have space. Here you can put it here. What we write? To create a image from Docker. ये तो समझ में आ रहा ना? Last वाला is for what purpose? right? Come on. That is used for what purpose? Container creation purpose. Yeah. Can we put the port number in the browser? You forgot the basics. If you put to 80 or if you don't put to, both are same. Remember basics. So if you put it also same, if you don't put it also, it will work. That's why we need to always expose default port numbers to the customer. What's the default port number here? 80 or 443. Okay. Clear, guys, online? Any questions still here? Okay. So I have one example that I want you to do it. That example I'll show you. Tell me what. Okay. See here. We are setting up Tomcat on container. Till now we have installed, set up Tomcat on EC2 instance, right? So now we are setting Tomcat on what? Container. Okay. So VI Docker file. What is this? So from, is it mandatory that I need to go all the time with Ubuntu? Ubuntu is a base image I took it, which doesn't contain anything, just an operating system. But here directly I'm taking which image? Do I need to install the Tomcat? Do I need to install the Tomcat? No, I have an image where already the Tomcat is installed. So I'm just pulling the image. So once you pull the image, we have a home directory. What's that? So we call it as Catalina home. Catalina home meaning Tomcat home directory. That's not girl name, okay? Catalina. Catalina, right? So Catalina meaning here home directory. What is our, so where it is installing here? USR local Tomcat. Where it is installing means which directory? USR. So what is env meaning here, by the way? Env. It is creating Catalina home meaning this the variable. Just now we learned, right? env DevOps codes is equal to DevOps, right? Yeah. So, and then path. This is the path. And then as I am downloading the Tomcat, guys here, as I'm downloading the Tomcat image, already home directory and some default web apps will be there inside it or not. So what I'm doing, I'm using run command, and then what I'm doing, removing any existing applications are there or not. What is our, so which directory in Tomcat where we'll put our application? Web apps only, no? If it has any war files inside it, it is deleting, cleaning it. Next, what I'm downloading in local file, what I have? Jenkins. You can take any war file, guys. Okay. Sometimes that war file will not be good. Last time I tried that war file. You see? Sample war file for Tomcat. Okay. Do you see here war file? Download here. Sample.war is there, no? You can download that also, or you can use Jenkins Jenkins war file download. April 8. Okay, this is the latest file. Copy? Huh? What we do, I want you to do this. Will you do it, or should you want me to do? Will do? You do? Okay. So what we do is here, we need to get that, we need to get the file here locally. Which file? Jenkins.var file. So I copied it. What's the command to get download? Very good. Thank God. Very good. wget and then paste it. So we have our Jenkins locally here, Jenkins.var file. Now, what is the component that used to copy this Jenkins.var file in the remote? Copy command. Very good. So what I'm using here, copy this Jenkins.var file to which directory? Web apps directly. And then you're exposing which port number? Container port number is 8080. And then you are running the Tomcat. Will you do it? Huh? Do it, okay? Okay, so I'm also tempting to do it. So I want you to do it. Simple, right? So what you do, Nana, just take the Tomcat from and then set the environment variables, remove any existing files and copy the Jenkins.var file here, expose it. And what do you need to create you need to build it or not? What's the command? Docker build -t Tomcat image : version 1 dot. And then from there, Docker run ITT. And then what is here? Host port, and this is container port and create. And what do you do? If you take the IP address of our EC2 instance and then go here, :8080, then what should you get? What application? Jenkins should load. So till now we installed Jenkins on the EC2 instance. Now we have Jenkins also on container. That too what? Jenkins is managed by Tomcat. Jenkins is also an application only, right? Java application only, right? What we did, we installed Jenkins directly on the EC2 instance, right? Now we are hosting a Jenkins as an application inside the Tomcat. Not only Jenkins, any WAR file you take, you can download any WAR file. You can do it like this. So I want you to complete this. I'll stop it here. So what we did today, the complete class is on Docker file. You understand how to create Docker files, how to run the build, how to create the containers, right? Different type, real examples I took it. I took HTML and then deployed, and then I took the Java application, Jenkins WAR file, and then deployed onto the container. So I'm giving this here link. Check it. Sometimes the WAR file will work or not. Okay, try to check it. So we'll able to do this now. Any questions online? Online, any questions? Yes, I'll upload the notes. I didn't upload last notes, no? I'll upload now. We'll do it. Okay, Nana? Okay, so we'll please complete it. I'm telling you again and again, Docker is super, super important. It's a microservice. Guys, am I going fast or slow? Slow and dead slow I'm going. So if you are regular to the classes, you can easily go through it. But if you miss 2, 3, 4 days and then come back again, and you feel obviously out of the head, right? So if you are regular to the classes, you will be enjoying the classes. If you are missing the classes in between, you don't know what I'm talking about. Please, okay? So please be regular to the classes, and then I'm going very slow, Docker command by command. So it's all about practice it. Please practice it and you will be fine. Okay. Can I get the final CC for today, please? I'll upload right away to the Google Classroom. So please complete all your practicals. And tomorrow we'll go with the next Docker concepts. So that is all for today. Let's connect tomorrow with the next important thing. Until then, take care, guys. Have a nice day. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.